On this Tuesday night, stepping down. Anthony Rota bows to pressure and resigns as House of Commons Speaker.
I reiterate my profound regret for my error.
The firestorm over celebrating a man who fought for the Nazis. Hardeep Singh Nijjar's murder, accounts of what security video shows the night he was gunned down. Record high use of Canada's food banks.
It's heartbreaking.
The potential ways to alleviate poverty as stores struggle to stop shoplifting. And life in Yellowknife after the wildfire.
Times are going to be a little lean now.
The worries about a difficult winter ahead.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There's more fallout from the standing ovation members of Canada's House of Commons gave to a Ukrainian man who fought with a Nazi unit during the Second World War. Anthony Rota, the Speaker of the House of Commons, has resigned. He's the MP who invited 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka to be in the gallery when Ukraine's president addressed Parliament last week. Hunka was recognized as a Ukrainian hero. When it later became clear he'd fought with the Nazis, the pressure on Rota was intense.
I reiterate my profound regret for my error in recognizing an individual in the House during the joint address to Parliament of President Zelensky.
The whole episode is not only embarrassing for Canada, Russia is using it in its propaganda about its war on Ukraine. Mackenzie Gray has our top story tonight.
Early this morning, the mood was clear.
I can't see, based on the conversations that I've had, that he will continue to have the support of Liberal members of Parliament.
And I think the Speaker should listen to members of the House and step down.
With all four major parties calling for Speaker Anthony Rota's departure, the inevitable came.
It's with a heavy heart that I rise to inform members of my resignation as Speaker of the House of Commons.
Rota becoming the first Speaker since 1986 to quit, after he not only invited...
He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero,
but honored a 98-year-old man who fought in a Nazi unit after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's speech to Parliament on Friday.
That public recognition has caused pain to individuals and communities, including the Jewish community in Canada and around the world, in addition to survivors of Nazi atrocities in Poland, among other nations.
The Speaker's office says Yaroslav Hunka's son asked if the Nazi-linked veteran could attend Zelensky's appearance, and Rota's team obliged. But that explanation not good enough for the opposition.
This man is not a hero. He is a monster, and he had no business being here.
The Parliament has been tarnished, and so many people have been hurt by what happened last Friday.
Jewish groups applauding Rota's resignation, but also want an apology from the Prime Minister.
Our reputation as a nation is being besmirched around the world. This is the time for leadership. This is the time for a prime minister to step forward and explain what happened very clearly.
The Polish government hoping for more, suggesting they're considering asking for Hunka to be extradited to Warsaw.
I'm sure this request will be considered at the Institute of National Remembrance, and possibly some steps will follow.
After Rota's announcement, he left the chair and didn't preside over question period, but he doesn't officially end his duties until Wednesday evening, Donna, at which point the Commons will need to elect a new Speaker.
Mac, a new Speaker will be elected, but I guess we don't know how long that might take.
Yeah, and it's going to happen fairly quickly, Donna, because the rules for the House of Commons say they can't do any other business like votes or hold question period until that new Speaker is elected. But as of now, there isn't a date for that. We heard from NDP House Leader Peter Julian earlier. He told reporters that he thinks the vote will take place next week because MPs need to be in the chamber in Ottawa and can't participate virtually like they do for QP. And I'm sure MPs who want the job, Donna, would also like the weekend to quietly lobby for the prestigious dig that comes with a beautiful home in Chelsea, Quebec. But whenever the vote does happen, it'll be held by secret ballot, and the Dean of the House of Commons Bloc MP, Louis Plamondon, will preside over it. Donna?
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thanks. India's foreign minister addressed the United Nations today and made an indirect reference to Canada. As the diplomatic dispute between Canada and India deepens, Delhi continues to call the assertion its agents were involved in the murder of a Canadian Sikh leader absurd. Touria Izri reports.
India is trying to position itself as a rising global power, and that includes a visit to the United Nations. And an interview with an American think tank, where the Indian foreign minister told the crowd New Delhi does not carry out extrajudicial killings.
This is not the government of India's policy. Two, we told the Canadians saying that, look, if you have something specific, if you have something relevant, let us know. We are open to looking at it.
He also dug in, repeating India's claim Canada is sheltering terrorists and criminals and is too lax on Sikh separatists.
We have actually been badgering the Canadians. We have given them a lot of information.
Last week, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau revealed Canada has credible intelligence India may be linked to the killing of Canadian Sikh leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
I can confirm what the Prime Minister shared publicly, that there is clear intelligence that Canada has.
India calls the allegation absurd.
Credible allegations.
While a bizarre smear campaign against Trudeau is underway in Indian media. With unfounded claims, the Prime Minister brought cocaine onto his plane during his visit for the G20. It's against this backdrop a senior Canadian military officer traveled to the Indian capital for a gathering of army chiefs. Major General Peter Scott spoke with Indian news agency ANI.
I'm fully aware of Prime Minister Trudeau's statement, the government's stance, and the government's request for India to participate in and cooperate in the investigation. But really that has no impact on us here at the Indo-Pacific Conference.
New Delhi is hosting that conference as Western leaders court India to counter China.
They're also not happy about this coming out publicly the way it has come, because there was a great deal at stake.
There are also questions about what the diplomatic dispute means for Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy. There's an entire section dedicated to India. The country is a pillar in the year-old strategy, and right now that pillar is shaky. Touria Izri, Global News, Ottawa.
The investigation into the murder of a Sikh leader at the heart of all of this is ongoing. No one has been arrested. There is security camera video that shows a little bit of what unfolded that night in June in Surrey, BC. The Washington Post and the New York Times have spoken to people who say they've seen the video and are reporting that what happened was more complex than what police have described. Our Kamil Karamali is in Surrey, where he's been speaking to people. Kamil, what have you learned?
Donna, to be clear, Global News has not seen the video, but spoke to 3 independent people who have, including the spokesperson for the Guru Nanak Gurdwara here in Surrey, BC, and it paints a harrowing picture leading up to the fatal shooting. Now, they say the video shows Hardeep Singh Nijjar's truck pulling out of its parking spot. The video then allegedly shows Nijjar's truck speed up while a white van starts driving beside the truck through the parking lot. The truck then reaches the exit, but the white van then pulls in front to block Nijjar's truck from leaving the parking lot.
That car was used as a blocker car to block Mr. Hardeep Singh Nijjar in while the assassins came and shot at him from the driver's seat. That car made its way out, and quickly after that, the assassins, they moved out as well. So from watching that video, we could tell that this wasn't something that was done abruptly, or it wasn't a random act, that this was well planned, orchestrated.
Now, the Gurdwara spokespeople also said that the video shows the 2 gunmen going into a silver car afterwards with 3 other individuals. Now, the Gurdwara is choosing not to make the video public because of the police investigation, and they are now conducting an internal investigation of their own to determine who leaked it to the Washington Post.
And Kamil, there have been some reports police were slow to respond to the scene back in June. What do you know about that?
Yeah, there's plenty of criticism on the arrival time of police. Witnesses say that it took up to 15 minutes or around 15 minutes for the police to arrive after the shooting itself, and that there was a disagreement between Surrey police officers and RCMP on who should take the lead on scene. Surrey police have said that is not true, but did not speak specifically on how long it took officers to arrive. There's also growing criticism on why investigators asked the public's help to search for the silver getaway vehicle, but did not publicly say anything about the white van allegedly involved, or that there were as many as 6 people in what they're calling a coordinated attack. And Donna, so far there have been no suspects identified by police. Back over to you.
All right, Kamil Karamali in Surrey, BC, thanks. 15 potential unmarked graves have been found near a former residential school in the Yukon. Researchers used ground-penetrating radar to scan more than 37,000 square meters of land at the former Chutla residential school in Carcross. They say more invasive work is needed to confirm if the sites are graves, but their locations are consistent with survivors' accounts and thousands of archival documents. Opening arguments in the trial of Peter Nijjar have begun in Toronto. The Crown laying out its case that the former fashion mogul used his power and status to lure and sexually assault young women. The 82-year-old has pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of forcible confinement. The Crown alleges all 5 complainants in the case were brought to Nijjar's office building in Toronto, where he forced himself on them. The Crown also told the jury the bedroom door had automatic locks and no handles. The trial is expected to go on for 7 weeks. Nijjar faces separate charges in Manitoba and Quebec and is set to be extradited to the U.S. to face charges there once these Canadian criminal cases are finished. There is a troubling new picture of how many Canadians are turning to food banks to feed themselves and their families. Food Banks Canada says roughly 2.8 million Canadians are unable to afford basic necessities and live in poverty. In its countrywide report card, 7 provincial governments received a D+ or worse for their weak approach to poverty reduction. Quebec got the highest grade, a B-. It wrote the country's first poverty reduction strategy in 2002. Nova Scotia got the worst grade, an F. Our business reporter Nivrita Ganguly takes a deep dive into the report.
With the cost of food, housing, and nearly all essentials on the rise, food banks have become vital for an increasing number of families struggling to make ends meet.
It's heartbreaking. We're seeing the highest level of food bank use in Canadian history.
New research by Food Banks Canada shows nearly 43% of Canadians feel financially worse off compared to last year, and 18% are experiencing food insecurity. Volunteers on the front lines say the data is not surprising.
Last year, our network received 403,000 visits to over 100 agencies across Ottawa. This year, we're expecting to have those visits reach almost 500,000.
In a series of poverty report cards, Food Banks Canada has graded Canada's territories and provinces on efforts to reduce poverty. And the results don't look good. Quebec scored highest with a B-, a 5% poverty rate, low food insecurity, and stronger social assistance have all helped.
What's positive is that when you do make a concerted effort, you will see progress. We saw that with the grade that Quebec is being given.
But Nova Scotia fared the worst on metrics like food insecurity, social assistance, standard of living, and legislative efforts to reduce poverty.
What's really driving the F grade in Nova Scotia is inaction. What we're seeing is a stagnation around any sort of progress to alleviate poverty from a policy perspective.
In this report, Food Banks Canada has outlined detailed policy recommendations for governments at the federal and provincial levels. A national rent supplement program is one suggestion. Another is extending GST tax credits until the inflation rate reaches that 2% target.
What we've done with the poverty report cards this year is provide very actionable policy recommendations built for the governments in place. They're realistic and they're really doable for governments.
Nivrita Ganguly, Global News, Toronto.
The politics of labor disputes coming up, why American President Joe Biden turned up on a picket line today. This is a first, a sitting American president joining striking auto workers on the picket line in Michigan. It is an extraordinary show of support for organized labor by a president who needs to win over voters. Michigan is a key swing state. It has a powerful bloc of voters. Former President Donald Trump is expected to be there on Wednesday. And as Brittany Rosen reports, they're delivering dueling messages to the same audience.
You deserve what you've earned, and you've earned a hell of a lot more than you're getting paid now. Thank you very much.
In a historic moment, U.S. President Biden met with auto workers, fist-pumping their efforts in fighting for higher wages. Biden's visit is strategic, coming during a tense race for re-election. Trump is slated to join the picket line Wednesday, both candidates vying to capture critical swing states like Michigan, where unions are influential.
Biden has claimed that he is the most pro-union president in history.
Biden won Michigan during the 2020 election, but Trump took the state in 2016.
We will fight until we win!
The UAW has been on strike for 12 days. 18,000 workers across dozens of states have walked off the job, and those work stoppages could result in significant supply chain disruptions.
Service units, dealership, repair, maintenance, service operations, they may just start telling people that, we don't have the parts, we can't do the service.
Experts say the economic fallout of the strike could make or break candidates' run for presidency.
This could be very dangerous for Biden because that seems to be the one issue where voters don't feel like they have a lot of confidence in him.
And Trump's strategy, of course, will be to capitalize on that. Also of note, Donna, while Biden continues to tout his status as the most pro-labor president, the UAW has yet to endorse his bid for re-election. I'll send things back to you.
All right, Brittany Rosen in Washington, thanks. A fire during a wedding in northern Iraq has killed at least 100 people and injured many more. According to the Iraqi National News Agency, it appears to have started when fireworks were set off inside the events hall and highly flammable panels on the walls were quickly engulfed in flames. The bride and groom are believed to be among the victims, according to local media. Rising rates of violent shoplifting in Canada. Ahead, we explore the potential solutions. As many Canadians struggle to keep up with the rising cost of living, the impacts are being felt across the retail sector. There's been a big increase in violent shoplifting, not just in Canada, but in many countries. As Mike Jourley reports, finding a solution isn't simple.
On the streets of Toronto, the lengths retailers will take to curb shoplifting is on full display. It's a battle retailers are increasingly worried they're losing. Violent incidents are up, and while police make the occasional large bust, store owners like Chris Scholes in Calgary have yet to see a deterrent, and that includes jail that works.
They're very entitled. They feel like it's their right and that our feelings don't matter to them. They will do whatever it takes to get what they want, and they are very forceful with it.
I want to see an office for violence reduction reporting very close to the mayor in every major city in Canada.
Criminologist Irvin Waller has been studying the trend for decades. If there's an overnight solution, he doesn't have it. But he says programs focusing on social outreach, youth development, mentoring, and positive parenting have been proven to reduce violent crime by 50% over 5 years in other cities like Glasgow, Scotland, and London, England.
And I think the issue is not, tough on crime or tough on causes. It's getting smart on crime. And smart on crime means you're using evidence.
And the evidence shows that in various cities, pilot projects to curb crime work, but they don't have a lasting effect.
There's lots of resources being poured into the response, but there doesn't seem to be any kind of a coordinated strategy in terms of how are we going to get to outcomes. And I feel like too much of what we're doing is driven by ideology rather than evidence and good data and outcomes.
On Parliament Hill, a rise in shoplifting doesn't appear to be on the Liberal radar. Minister of Justice Arif Virani says it hasn't come up in discussions about crime, a fact that leaves the Conservatives perplexed.
In fact, we're hearing from a lot of businesses that they're calling police, just exhausted from all of the losses and insurance claims and the abuse.
It's not quite an epidemic, but retailers and police are hoping Ottawa hears them before it turns into one. Mike Jourley, Global News, Toronto.
Recovering revenue next. Fears in Yellowknife small businesses will go under after a season disrupted by fires. Wildfires not only change the landscape and burn down homes, they can change the economy, especially of small towns and cities. In Yellowknife, there are huge financial losses, and some business owners fear they won't be able to survive the winter. Heather Urix West spoke to locals about the difficult road ahead.
It was supposed to be a day of celebration, but last Saturday, almost 2 weeks after residents of Yellowknife returned to their northern community, the skies overhead were dark and red.
You're kind of constantly reminded that you're not really in a safe place, and something bad could happen at any moment.
There was no immediate danger, but the air quality forced the city to cancel its welcome home party plans. One more challenge for a region that has already been through a lot.
That we're not going to give up on Yellowknife yet, but I think without some supports coming in financially, we're going to see another exodus from the territory.
That's because for most northern residents, evacuations that spanned several weeks came with significant out-of-pocket costs, more than the territory's one-time support payment covered.
I think times are going to be a little lean now for the next couple of months, and especially moving into the Christmas season, with people having spent so much money on evacuation.
But it's a difficult reality facing small businesses now as they try to recover revenue that's been lost.
I teach yoga retreats, and I had one booked for September 1st to 5th at Frontier Fishing Lodge, where I teach an annual wellness retreat. And that was canceled, and it's one of my biggest retreats of the year.
The territory is offering grants to small businesses up to $5,000 to offset costs. But for some, that support doesn't go far enough.
Listening to stories of some of the other small businesses were like kind of heartbreaking. You realize that, you know, their lives, like livelihoods, are on the line right now. And it's possible that the North will see a lot of small businesses shut down.
It's why Yellowknife's Chamber of Commerce believes federal funding will also be required. The approaching winter may bring the summer-long firefight to an end, but in these weary northern communities, there is still an urgent need for help. Heather Yurix West, Global News.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Pine Beach in Dorval, Quebec. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.